I work for Kickstarter. I've been working for Kickstarter for about almost 2 years now. I've backed over 800 projects, and I've worked with about 100 creators. Probably half of those are startups. And so everything from small startups trying to start some local service to, one startup that was actually a graduate of Numa that I've worked with recently is a startup called Print, which was creating a phone case that pretty much lets you turn your phone into a Polaroid camera, though they can't say that because that infringes on copyrights, of course, but I can. So what I'm going to talk about today is I'm not an entrepreneur, but I work with a lot of entrepreneurs. So I'm going to give you guys my stance, my perspective on working with entrepreneurs, what I call, entrepreneurship from the sidelines, because my perspective is really from working with, at this point, probably I've touched at least 200 projects, but I've worked closely with at least 50 entrepreneurs who are bringing projects to life on Kickstarter. And from working with, all these entrepreneurs, there's definitely a lot of things that I've learned about what, more than what makes a startup successful, what makes a startup that I find successful, but that also inspires me. And that's what I want to share with you tonight. The first thing that I want to just mention is that you guys are lucky in some ways because there are more opportunities for startups and more options for startups than there ever was. Whether you're talking about, funding options, different ways that you can raise money, whether you're talking about different manufacturing options, ways that you can make a product, different platforms for actually software development. So there's all these amazing new opportunities out there. That's not to say that creating a product or launching a company is easy. It's very tough. And the three main traits, or I guess you could say values of companies that I've worked with that have led to success, but that also I find have led to inspirational success are these three things. One is purpose, two is resilience, and three is passion. So when I talk about purpose, what I mean is having a reason for doing what you're doing and having a reason that the entrepreneur believes in, but having a reason that everybody in the company can believe in. And the example for this is really Kickstarter. I mean, these are our three founders. This is Charles, Perry, and Yancey. I'm going to tell you, the way that I'm going to run this presentation is really tell you three stories about three different companies and how they embodied each one of these different traits. So Kickstarter, it all started with an idea in 2001 when Perry, who was at the time living in New Orleans, wanted to do a concert with this DJ duo called Kruder and Dorfmeister from Austria. And he didn't have money to do it. He didn't have a place, and he pretty much needed about $15,000 to pull this off. And at that point, he was inspired. What if there was a platform where I could raise money, I could set a goal, I say I need $15,000 to bring the show to life. If I'm able to get enough people to pledge money to this idea to help me bring it to life, then the money will change hands, and then this idea will actually materialize. And if I don't reach that goal, then the money will never change hands, and so pretty much limiting the risks of everybody involved. A few years later, 4 years later, Perry had moved to New York, was working as a waiter at this restaurant in Williamsburg called The Diner. Yancey, who at that point Perry had a small art gallery. I mean, I don't know if you could even call it an art gallery. It was a small space where they showed art, and worked at this restaurant. And Yancey, who at the point, one of our other founders, was a music critic at a startup that was called eMusic, which no longer exists. And they met at this restaurant, and they became friends. It was a restaurant that Yancey went to frequently, and that's when they started actually talking about the idea and really kind of talking about what it would take to make this a reality. So throughout this whole time, from the beginning when Perry had the idea, when Yancey joined him in this possibility of creating this startup, bringing creative projects to life and supporting creativity was their purpose. That's what was driving them to create this startup. And that has become really kind of a cornerstone of everything we do at Kickstarter. So these are some of the very early beta prototypes of Kickstarter. You can even see that at first Kickstarter didn't even have an E. It was a trend back then that all these startups like Flickr, lost a syllable, but luckily that they didn't go that route. So after a few years of prototyping, from 2005 to 2009, they prototyped. They had issues. It was a rough road. And in 2009, Kickstarter launched. their first project, this is not actually their first funded project. The first project that funded on Kickstarter was a project that raised $30 for an illustrator to make 3 drawings. So as you can tell, we've come a long way. Right now, we've had 83,000 projects funded on Kickstarter. There's been more than $1.6 billion that have been pledged to projects on Kickstarter. 8.4 million people have backed projects, and more than 2.5 million of those people have backed more than one project. In terms of France, even though we haven't officially, yet become available to creators in France, we've had over 220 French creators that have already created projects on Kickstarter by finding some collaborator in the US or in some other country. I'm very happy to say that that's going to change very soon. Within the next couple of months, we will be rolling out to creators here. But again, I think the main point is through all of this, from the moment where they, it was a single project doing 3 illustrations to today, the main driving force behind everything we do, and the reason that inspires me and pretty much everybody else who works at Kickstarter, is this notion that we're supporting other people to create amazing stuff. So this purpose is really something that kind of inspires and really drives, everything that we do at the company. So that's purpose. Next, let's talk about resilience. So what is resilience? So resilience is what gives you the ability to overcome obstacles. As a startup, you're going to have to deal with many obstacles of innumerable types. So let's talk a little bit about Zach. Zach is a guy who founded a company called Spark. And this company, his first attempt to found a company, or his first product that he was trying to get out in the market, was called Spark. And Spark is essentially this little thing that you could connect the light bulb to, and then you could control that light bulb with your cell phone. And his vision, and this was before, this was several years back, at the very cusp of when connected devices were becoming popular or even becoming a possibility. And his vision, has a beautiful story. He was inspired by his father, who was deaf, and when he was growing up, lights in his house were actually used to communicate to his father when somebody was ringing the doorbell or when different types of things happened. And he wanted his ideal was not just to create a light that could be controlled by a cell phone, but it's to create a light that could communicate information in the same way that we have blinking lights in our car that communicate different things to us. He wanted to allow people to do that with lights in their home. Unfortunately, his campaign was not successful. He needed $250,000 in order to bring this idea into a product that would go out into the marketplace, and he was only able to raise half that. And this was definitely, talking to Zach, this was definitely, something that set him back, set the whole team back, and they went back to the drawing board. What are we doing? I mean, are we even going to continue with this company? Are we just going to pack up shop and try something else? But luckily, for a lot of makers and product developers in the world, what they decided to do is they realized we've solved this really important problem, the problem of making a connected device, the problem of making a device that is connected to the internet. Maybe people do not want an actual, connector for a light bulb that's connected to the internet, but what about if we were to turn that into a platform and use the technology that we've developed already and customize that so that it can be more of a general purpose technology for anybody who wants to prototype a connected device. About a year and a half after his first campaign, Spark Core was launched, and Spark Core was a wildly successful campaign where they were able to raise almost $600,000 from about 5,500 backers to bring to life this platform. And in the process, they were also able to start building a community of developers who wanted to, both develop products and play with this notion of creating connected objects. So to date, I mean, these are just a small selection of all the products that have come to life that actually use Spark Core at its core. They actually, these are all products that are powered by Spark Core. So these are products that not only did the development team use Spark Core to develop the products, but there is an actual Spark Core in every single one of these products. So what's interesting is not only have they been able to develop a really successful product that has, is now powering many, most of these products are crowdfunded. There's very few products of theirs so far that have actually made it into retail store, but that's what their focus is on now. And the other interesting thing is beyond these kind of nice shiny products that you have here, I mean, SparkCore has been now adopted by the maker community. So if you actually search online in Instructables or on Spark's own website, there are hundreds and hundreds of projects that you can make using SparkCore, products that you can make at home to hack your coffee machine, to hack all types of things. And there are thousands and thousands of developers that are now using this, technology, which, was at the core of their first project, but, which they had to really be able to pivot in order to figure out that that's really where the idea was, and that's really where the also the opportunity lay. And more recently, just a few weeks ago, they finished running their second campaign to launch their third product, which is the Spark Electron, which just takes a SparkCore, which used to be a Wi-Fi development platform for Internet of Things objects, to a cellular development platform. So again, Zach just shows an example where him and his team, it wasn't just about the vision of their first product, but it was about a team of people who were very talented and were very dedicated to creating a company. And there was a very large curveball thrown at them, very early in their process, and they were able to kind of pivot and continue to thrive into what is now an amazingly successful company. So the last thing that last kind of trait that I see in a lot of the startups that inspire me is passion. And so passion is just, intense and compelling enthusiasm, is just being, that excitement that you have for what you're bringing to life, that excitement that keeps you going through all the setbacks that you're going to face as an entrepreneur. So these two guys here are Jay and Eric. These guys created probably my favorite Kickstarter project of all time. So Jay and Eric met at the MIT Media Lab. They actually were part of a group called the Lifelong Kindergarten Group. And the focus of this group is creating learning tools for both kids and adults, but that are fun. Creating learning tools that might teach you concepts about technology, might teach you how to code, or might teach you just about the world in general around you, but in a way that's fun. And so their first project was actually Draudio. And Draudio, so everything these guys do, I mean, their real focus is on allowing people to invent things. Like, they want to create tools that enable people to invent things easily, without any kind of intimidation about having to use, difficult technologies. And so Draudio is this amazing product that lets you actually draw musical instruments, and with the pencil itself, you're able to play that musical instrument. I'm not going to go into this project very much because their other project is the one that really inspires me. If that sounds interesting at all, you should search for this project afterwards. But so their project that was really magical is one called Makey Makey. And Makey Makey is a project, they call it an invention kit for the 21st century. What Makey Makey lets you do essentially is control your computer so you can play Pac-Man, you can control a piano by using, various objects out in the real world. So rather than try to explain what this is by telling you, I'm going to play a short part of their video, which not only shows you what it is, but it shows you a little bit about the excitement that these guys have for their work, and just the amount of playfulness that they bring to creating this startup that they did around this notion of allowing people to invent things in a fun and uninhibited way.
Hi, I'm Jay.
And I'm Eric. We're graduate students at MIT Media Lab.
We have a dream that everyone is an inventor. So we created Makey Makey to let you invent just by alligator clipping.
So this is pretty much their project. This project has won an innumerable number of awards for Best Toy of the Year. And this project pretty much has been it kind of is a manifestation of the passion that these two guys have for this notion of making people into inventors and making people be able to invent things simply and kind of interact with the world in a new way. So at this point, that product, Makey Makey, is pretty much the core kind of creation of Joy Labs, which is the company that the two of them founded together, and that now they work and kind of just pushing forward this type of work and continuing to pursue. I mean, the interesting thing, as you see about these three startups, is that they're very different scales. I mean, you have, Kickstarter, which is a startup that at this point, we're about 115 people. You have Spark, which is a company that's aspiring to become a next HP, and then you have a small creative studio that their goal is really to have a small creative studio, 5 to 10 people, that just churns out awesome products and awesome experiences. But all these different startups of all these different scales, the thread that goes through the ability to deliver on all these different values is ultimately people. And this is really, I think, the thing to consider as you kind of go on your own journey to become an entrepreneur. Where it all begins is with you. Where it all begins is with the people that you're going to bring into your company, but more importantly, with the values and the culture that you're going to create as the first employee of that company or the first 3 employees of that company. And so the thing to take away here is that, 1, you can do amazing things, and 2, that you need to pretty much be the Steve Jobs, or you need to be pretty much be that inspiration for your employees and for eventually the customers and the clients that you're going to bring on board to take you to the next level. So that's pretty much all I have. I hope this was in some way helpful. And now I'll turn the mic back over to Julio. Thanks.